Hey everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video I will be summarizing and analyzing this book, which is George Orwell's Animal Farm. And even though the book is quite small in size and also relatively easy to read, it definitely provides a lot of interesting insights. So I would definitely recommend everyone to read this book at least once. So George Orwell, he was an English writer who wrote some extremely influential books, most notably 1984 and also Animal Farm. So throughout 1984, George Orwell, he warned us of the risks of totalitarian governments, whereas throughout Animal Farm, Orwell, he warned us of the risks of certain socialist ideologies, which, while they are advocating for equality, they run the risk of developing into totalitarian regimes themselves as well. And so throughout this video, I will summarize the contents of Animal Farm, and at the end also provide some analysis. So I'll begin now with the summary. So if you've not yet read the book, or if you want to avoid any spoilers, then it's best to skip towards the analysis part. So Animal Farm depicts the story of the animals living on a farm called Manor Farm. The animals, they decide to rebel against the authoritarian and abusive farmer called Mr. Jones. And the animals, they decide to take over the farm and to govern themselves according to certain rules which the animals also set up for themselves. So the mastermind behind the revolution is an old boar called Old Major, and Old Major convinces the animals to revolt by arguing that their lives are characterized by unnecessary hard labor and misery. According to Old Major, the life of an animal is misery and slavery. That is the plain truth. However, according to Old Major, this is not a necessary state of being for the animals, because the farm is capable to produce enough food for all the animals, and it's definitely not necessary to abuse the animals. According to Old Major, all the products created to the animals' labor, they are stolen by them from greedy humans. He argued, "Their comrades is the answer to all our problems. It is summed up in a single word: man." Old Major argues that man is the only real enemy, and if they could only remove man from the equation, then the animals could actually live a happy life on the farm. According to Old Major, man themselves do not add any value, and therefore the animals can easily do without their unproductive but abusive masters. As a result, rebellion is the answer, according to Old Major, who argues that only get rid of man, and the produce of our labor will be our own. That is my message to you, comrades: rebellion. However, several days after calling for rebellion, Old Major, he passes away, and the animals, they have however already been sufficiently motivated by the words of Old Major, and they decide to follow up with his call for rebellion. The animals, they prepare for the revolt, and they start to organize themselves. Two pigs in particular, they are important for the farm. They're called Napoleon and Snowball. They become kind of the organizers of the rebellion. And eventually the rebellion is carried out surprisingly easy. Mr. Jones is exiled from the farm, and the animals, they decide to change the name of the farm into Animal Farm, and they write 7 commandments down on the wall in the barn, which go: whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy, whatever goes upon 4 legs or has wings is a friend, no animal shall wear clothes, no animal shall sleep in a bed, no animal shall drink alcohol, no animal shall kill any other animal, and all animals are equal. And although many animals, they could not really understand all of these commandments, the farm was actually being run surprisingly well and effective. And even the humans in the neighboring villages, they become quite envious of the animals. And they make several attempts to regain control over the farm. However, the animals, they actually successfully prevent these attempts made by the humans. At the same time, however, it becomes clear that the pigs, throughout their brain power, they become the more dominant animals. So the pigs, they reserve certain kinds of products, such as milk and apples, for themselves, and argue that this is necessary for their brains. According to the pigs, if they cannot keep their brains functioning, then Mr. Jones will inevitably return. So this threat of the return of Mr. Jones, the other animals, they decide that it's better to accept these privileges for the pigs. However, at the same time, since 2 captains on a ship is often a bad idea, Napoleon and Snowball, they are in constant conflict and oppose each other's ideas constantly. Eventually, the situation gets out of hand, and Napoleon succeeds in a secret plan to get rid of Snowball, using a gang of dogs which Napoleon has been raising in secret. As a result, Napoleon, he becomes the sole leader of the animal farm, and Napoleon's reign actually quickly deteriorates into a totalitarian regime. So Napoleon, he manages to silence any opposition by threatening the other animals with his vicious pack of dogs, and at the same time Napoleon warns the other animals that if they do not do as they are told by him, that Mr. Jones will return. Moreover, Napoleon, he starts to blame everything that is going wrong, not on his own bad leadership, but on the vengeful actions of Snowball, who according to Napoleon was a secret spy of Mr. Jones all along, and was actually doing whatever was in his power to sabotage Animal Farm. So some of the smarter animals to begin to suspect that Napoleon is not ruling in accordance with the 7 commandments written down on the wall in the barn. However, as soon as these animals actually decide to check out the wall in the barn, when they actually became suspicious, they discover that the 7 commandments were written on the wall were not what they expected them to be. For instance, where they thought that was written, "No animal shall sleep in a bed," is now written, "No animal shall sleep in a bed with sheets." So in this manner, Snowball actually changed almost all the commandments, including the last one. All animals are equal was replaced by all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Eventually the pigs even start to walk on 2 legs, prompting Napoleon to change the maxim 4 legs good, 2 legs bad into 4 legs good, 2 legs better. So the other animals, they could not do much about these developments since their memory of the original ideas behind the revolution failed them. And at the same time, most animals, they believed in the propaganda spread by Napoleon and his friends, whereas those who did not believe in Napoleon's propaganda still figured that Napoleon was probably better than Mr. Jones, and surely no one wanted the return of Mr. Jones. Eventually, however, it was hard to tell the difference between pig and man. The creatures outside looked from pig to man and from man to pig, and from pig to man again, but already it was impossible to say which was which. So after listening to the summary, it might already become evident that the story of Animal Farm is based on a real-life historical event, namely the Russian Revolution and also the subsequent loss of the original revolutionary message. Even some of the animals, they are based on figures of the Russian Revolution. For example, Old Major, who spreads the original idea of the rebellion but quickly passes away, is based on Lenin, whereas Napoleon, who slowly develops into a tyrannical leader and changed the original message behind the revolution, is based on Stalin. At the same time, men in the story can be compared to the bourgeois, who are accused of creating all kinds of hardships for the animals, and animals in turn can be compared to the proletariat. And Mr. Jones, he can be compared to the Russian Tsar Nicholas II, whose reign ended with the Russian Revolution. So George Orwell's Animal Farm can be seen as a warning for what can go wrong with socialist revolutions preaching for equality. Although the revolution may be justified, as is the case with Animal Farm as well, eventually, perhaps due to human nature, or in the case of Animal Farm due to pig nature, someone wants to be in power. And these interests of the new ruling elite, so Stalin and Napoleon the pig in the case of the Russian Revolution and Animal Farm, they will then become more important, and the original message of the revolution will get lost in this power struggle. The other people or the other animals, they will not be able to do too much about it, since the new elite will be able to use force, propaganda, lies and threats in order to remain in power. And moreover, the new elite might argue that they have to take certain actions in order to save the population from a return to the situation prior to the revolution. With the Russian Revolution, this would mean a return to the rule of the Tsar, whereas on Animal Farm, this would mean the return of Mr. Jones. Actually, I believe that Friedrich Nietzsche can help us explain why such development often occurs after a revolution aimed at increasing equality. According to Nietzsche, it is hard to discern real interest in equality or justice, for instance, from interest in power. So in his book Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche argued that certain individuals who are preaching moral values, such as equality, are doing so with hidden motives. Nietzsche argued that they often do not preach these values out of love for mankind. Instead, according to Nietzsche, they are often motivated by revenge or jealousy. As such, Nietzsche observed that they tend to use the term justice as a means to acquire power, and Nietzsche actually called these people tarantulas. He wrote, "Thus do I speak unto you in parable, ye who make the soul giddy, ye preachers of equality. Tarantulas are ye unto me, and secretly revengeful ones." Therefore, Nietzsche argued that these tarantulas, they misuse the idea of equality as a reason to attack those in power. Nietzsche wrote, "Vengeance will we use and insult against all who are not like us. Thus do the tarantula hearts pledge themselves, and will to equality. That itself shall henceforth be the name of virtue, and against all that have power will we raise an outcry." However, Nietzsche observed that as soon as the tarantulas would actually become powerful themselves, they will quickly dismiss the values that they have been preaching up until then. Nietzsche wrote, "And when they call themselves the good and just, forget not that for them to be Pharisees, nothing is lacking but power." And this is also what we can clearly observe in the case of the Russian Revolution, or with the revolution on Animal Farm. In both instances, although the initial rebellion appears to be motivated by the right reasons, certain forces within the rebellion, such as Napoleon in the case of Animal Farm, or Stalin in the case of the Russian Revolution, they come to dominate the rebellion, and eventually these forces, they start to act in opposition to the original message, and the situation in terms of inequality, for instance, becomes even worse than before. So thank you very much for watching this video. Please let me know in the comments what you think about it, and hope to see you again in the next video.